Good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. Welcome to the Fatherhood Think Tank, the third 60 to 90 minutes of fathers conversation for fathers about fathers. We're here tonight. I see my guys in the back. A very interesting conversation we'll be having tonight. Talking a little bit about when your father dies, how men deal with the loss of his father. And I think that this is, again, another one of these poignant conversations to be able to have that they're not have very often. People maybe not even be able to have the type of conversation. So just thinking that we're able to have that conversation tonight. Lightborn.
What's going on? I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I was making sure. I didn't know if I was just sitting here talking, but I did an introduction and nobody heard anything I was saying. Well, okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. I'm Dr. Ron, the curator of the Fatherhood Think Tank. We're going to get right into this tonight because this is a topic I think that a lot of times we don't really hear a lot of. And when we have in the past heard fathers kind of talk about this conversation, it was a unique kind of conversation, one that, really you hadn't really seen in the past, because a lot of times you had a lot of fathers talk about the death of their mothers and how it affects them. And tonight we want to kind of look at how has the death of fathers affected um, you as a man and as a father, and how does that affect you overall? We welcome you to join in the conversation. Uh, log on, come in. We questions, conversation. We welcome it all. Definitely welcome other fathers and their opinion of the conversation. With that being said, let me introduce the fathers tonight in the think tank, and we hope that we have some here, but we need some more. Hope they'll come on now. Go ahead, fathers, introduce yourself for the night.
Okay, thank you, Ron. My name is Rohan Rollock. I'm a father of two young teenagers, young adults. Um, as usual, I'm always here to listen to a great topic you have tonight regarding what many people don't like to talk about. And I'm really looking forward to delve into this topic and see how we can shed some light where there is darkness.
Hey, good afternoon, gentlemen. Or good evening, gentlemen. My name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father to a tribe of 7 young adults, 3 young women, 4 young men, one granddaughter, and one grandson. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Okay. All right. So uh, let's just kind of get into it. I mean, I can't. I don't know how to really speak too much to this conversation because I don't have a point. My father is still alive. We have a strong, ongoing relationship. Um, I think one of the points to really be able to look at is sometimes it may not even be in some people might not even listen. Well, you know how we do at the Fatherhood Think Tank. The conversation of father being dead may not be biologically dead. Sometimes he's dead to us, or dead to the person.
Mhm.
Uh, as well as they have been involved with them, they might as well be dead. We heard all this kind of language and kind of things in the past, so I want to first put that out there. Gentlemen, it's open. The ball is, I throw the ball up like we're on volleyball and pivot it up and for you to spike or hit it back to me or wherever it is. I don't.
Well, uh, you know, the word most people use is someone has expired. He died in a car accident. I never met my dad. My mom told me I never had a dad. So, how do we look at this topic? How does a man deal with the loss of his father? Well, there are many ways to look at that. Life's a journey, and sometimes, the father goes, then you, the son, have to play the role. We all have to. We all have to perform on stage. We all get to go on stage to perform at some point in our lives, and whether it's death that is everyone was expecting, or whether it's a death where it was unexpected, it is final. That person is only left in our lives as a memory. Death is very challenging for a lot of people. But in this topic, it says a man. So I suspect it's someone who's an adult, who's over 18. And there are some men who are close to their fathers, and there are some men who are not close to their fathers. I believe everyone needs some healing when someone goes. When especially a close family member goes, it can be very rough. It can be a very emotional event. And I hope that all fathers will have some form of support to help them to continue the journey. Because unfortunately, sometimes we're all heading in the same direction. To some extent, it's a one-way street. But that's what I have to say regarding that.
Well, Ron, let me ask you a question. I think you made a point to you know it's more a personal question than a general question. You made a point to say, hey, your mother told you didn't have a dad. What happened? But in your search as a father now, have you thought about that component of your dad that you don't have or didn't have, or even in the sense of, I think sometimes I think when we're looking at it, especially for if someone hasn't really had that involved, like I know exactly what it would feel like for me to have my father die, right? Not wishing anything on him. I mean, knock on the hard wood because he's enjoying his best life right now, um, especially after uh, some of the ups and downs he had the last couple, uh, you know, last couple months. But um, the idea of that um, is one that I know that when you talk about the emotionality that people would have, I probably would have a large emotionality, not only because he's my father, but also in many instances, he's become one of my closest friends, right? Um, Probably because he's my father, that he has become one of my closest friends, and probably because we have so much in common through heredity, through uh, nature, right?
Right.
And a lot of the post nurturing he has done as another grown man to me, right? As I was able to, and I think we've done to each other. I think we both have did mutual nurturing each other as men and as fathers with each other. So, my question then is, how do you, how do you, how you navigate in this idea of, well, I don't have a father, I didn't have a father, my mother told me I didn't have a father, and if you're, have you even searched or looked for your father, see if he is alive, if he's, is he
Well,
actually?
my father has always been, I would say, in and out of my life. Let's just say that. He's, to some extent, he's a rogue. If you just to explain how his character. Right now, he's ill. He's not in the best. He has all what they say in the hospital. He's a train wreck. So pretty much he's parked, and we're taking care of him as we speak. Um, I wish there were things were different, meaning more interaction. But sometimes what you're given is what you're given in life. So
Mhm.
if we have to spend some of the latter years with him, talk to him, see him see him go through the changes he's going through right now in terms of illness. If that's what you're given, that's what you're given, and you have to work with that. Um, there's no words I could say, to be honest, because sometimes things just don't go as planned, and sometimes things go as planned, and you just have to make the best of the situation. But right now he's we went and got him. We had a hurricane in the islands. We went and got him, and he was doing well. And when we got him after the hurricane, he had only two shirts in his hand. So his life has been up in the sky and down in the gutters. And
Mm.
he's he's an older male struggling with a lot of health issues. So it's challenging to see him like that. I went to see him. I went to see him this year, and I'm going back next month to see him again. And you make the best of the situation. That's where we're at right now.
I, I, I just I so much want to point out something to the audience and people who are listening, is that I can even hear the concern for your father in your voice, right? For your father in your voice. And the idea of the relationship may have not been the one that, you know, you wanted, or the one that maybe your mother felt that you should have. But
Mhm.
this is why I so much advocate the idea that don't give up on your parents. Uh, don't give up on your fathers, because there is a component of there that you need them as well as they need you. I think people are willing to write off. I ain't got no dad. He don't exist to me, or he never did nothing for me. He ain't a sperm donor. You hear a lot of that negative, but we know that when we really look at it and we push back the curtain, that is really for the hurt of not having the relationship maybe they wanted to have. Because we know that when we see people have those relationships with their dads and the ones they have, if it's even equal to the one they have with their mom, it's it's nothing but joy in many cases. You don't see people say, "Oh man, I want my dad every day. Oh my God, I can't stand it. I'm so tired of being around him." Because again, he's not going to be that kind of person just by the nature of being a man. Sometimes he's going to be a kind of, nah, I don't want nothing. I don't need nothing. And you know that he needs, and you know he wants, but he'll play his manly role, and you have to kind of, have a compassion. You have to have an empathy for who and what he is and what he may have went through or what he didn't go through. So I think that's a really good point that you shared that could show people that who are maybe still on the teeter line of I don't mess with him. And last week's show, he a deadbeat or he is this. And I always will say this: you don't know what you're missing, even if it is garbage, right? Even if he is garbage, even if he is all the worst things, you don't know what you're missing if you haven't took a chance to experience him, because experiencing him in some point is also experiencing yourself. And I think that's the part that we
Absolutely, and
don't highlight enough.
Yep. I always say this to many fathers that I meet and so forth. Life's like a toilet paper, and you probably heard this before. The sooner you get to the roll, you how can I put it? The sooner you get to the roll, you know that there's no more toilet paper. So look at that. You have a father. Your life is changing. He's getting older. What's going to happen next? It's not like I can just go get another toilet paper. That's my father right there. He's in poor health, and I would say to every father, despite the situation, circumstances, spend as much time with your father as possible, because once they're gone, they're gone. It's there's no you can't just say, okay, next week I'll see your dad next week. So if you can spend some time with your dad, a phone call, communication, do it, because once they're gone, they're gone.
And not only once they're gone, there is a likelihood that you're going to find a lot of stuff about them secondhand that you didn't learn when they was alive. I've seen times when people have went to a funeral and they hadn't even had the real relationship or hadn't been involved with their dad, and they found out. And we know at funerals people give all the great things about people and this and the honor of their life and what have you. But just imagine that you know none of this stuff. You don't know that your dad, saved many people's life, or he was the stuff. Now, two things happening, I think, in that scenario, because I've heard a lot of times people will be like, well, what about me? How am I hearing these great things about his interaction, his life with all these other people? People loved him. He was there for people. He did these things. But why was it for me and wasn't there for me? And why did I get a short change of the stick? And sometimes as adults, we have to own up. Some accountability is, if we want something, we go to it. And I think more often we see the young ladies, the daughters, go and do that. They go and search out their dad, and they forgive them, and they try to work with them and try to be. Sometimes as the guys, we sometimes, as men, we kind of are almost like sometimes not so forgiving. And I have a lot of theories about that. One of the theories is because we now challenge our dad, because we became the man of our family that we feel that he should have been, right? So you can't tell me nothing because I did your job and I was in your, but you weren't. I mean, you can't. I mean, you might have felt like you was doing. He might have felt like, hey, I went out and worked, and I didn't have you to teach me to play baseball and tell me about girls and these things I missed out on. But sometimes your dad is in the house and he don't do none of that stuff. You know, so it's it's like half a dozen or six. You know, same. I'm probably not doing that quote right, but you get the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, gentlemen. My dad actually did die. He died in 1999, before the turn of the century. Never forget that. And he died in a very interesting episode of his life. It's like he died when he was being reborn. And what I mean by that, he died when he was in a renewed romance after coming out of a very traumatic divorce. And just to watch all that play out, because he didn't think he would have survived that divorce, that marriage. That's the marriage he wanted to die in, right? And so he's blessed. God blessed him, renewed him to survive that particular divorce, coincidentally from a woman that he should have married 40 years prior. Now, at that particular time, I was still a young man when I'm finding all this out. And I have the utmost respect for the woman that he was getting ready to marry, prior to his death. And they were supposed to have been married 40 years prior. And here it is, 40 years later, the opportunity comes up, comes to them again, and him in a traumatic divorce, and her, because she was married too, in a traumatic accident. Just literally how they came back together. So he had a traumatic divorce. She had a traumatic, her husband died in a traumatic accident. So his relationship died via divorce. Her relationship died via auto accident. They came back together 40 years later, and was in the middle of planning a wedding. And so here's my dad getting ready to plan a wedding, and we excited for him. He was just happy, the most happy I'd ever seen him. I never thought he was gonna be, because I remember him when he was going through his divorce. He sought me for counseling, and at this particular time, I had just started doing social work, and just for my dad to seek out counseling, which means he had to be in a very low place or very hurtful place, but nonetheless to see him reborn before he died, that was a very interesting scenario. And to see that romance that they was in, and I mean, just to find something to relive for, was another interesting thing. So there was so many lessons in that death. And here you are, I found out so many things in his death than I did in his life, that even as a son, I wanted the happiness for him, even though if he had gotten 40 years earlier what he was able to experience 40 years later, then I wouldn't be here. So the woman he was supposed to marry was predates my conception. And had he married her, I wouldn't be born. Here it is, 40 years later. God had the right time. I'm born. Everybody's alive. We're supposed to be alive, and he died. He died in the process of actually marrying the woman, the love of his life. So it was a nice romance story. I mean, if it didn't, it really happened because he actually died on his way to the plane. The plane was running late. I guess he was running late for the plane, rather. He was running through the airport and had a heart attack.
Wow, man.
It was, but to know that that his death was actually a love story was just something just really enlightening for me. So I'm truly grateful for his life, and guess what? I'm also grateful for his death.
Lesson learned. Yep.
Yeah, man, that's an amazing story. Like, I mean, amazing story. And I think that, you know, it's these type of story narratives that helps the imagery of fathers and fatherhood, right? Because I think in each of our cases, despite, you know, father being passed, father being ill, father being, you know, wherever they are, you hear the resilience that has happened with their life as a man, right? And I think sometimes I think this is something I tell a lot of young people when I talk to them about healthy relationships and getting in relationships is that don't rush. Take your time. Don't rush. Don't be so anxious to try to be and get in these relationships before really finding out who you are. Because look to our ancestors, you know. Because sometimes you know, you can take your time and manage and work it out. In life born situation, the woman of you that you could have spent the last 20 years with, that you're only getting to spend 5 years with, you know. And again, I put it on us as the men, because we choose the women that we want to be with. You know, it's not they can't choose you, and that's, you know, the only thing they choose us, and then we trick off on them. You know, you choose me, I'm tricking off on them. You know, I mean, that's one of those things. Because, but when a man chooses that woman and say, hey, this is the woman I want to be with, and a lot of times our dads didn't have that. Some of us didn't have the choice to choose the woman. Circumstances made us choose the woman, and, you know, we might have should have been with somebody else, but we couldn't be with them because we had built all of this other stuff up, and we didn't get to just choose them as we should have. And sometimes that takes time.
As a matter of fact, and I think that story was very instrumental in my marriage, because I had, and who put the whole story together for me was his fiance after the funeral and everything, and after, you know, things, because they was in the process of moving. He was going to move from the Bahamas here, and then they was going to move from here to Tampa. So she was actually building a brand new house, and they was getting. I mean, he was just excited. And after the funeral and everything, we got past everything. I bought my then girlfriend to meet her. I was like, and I mean, she sat me and her down and told us the whole story. That's how I got the story. I got the story after the funeral, and she just put the pieces together for me. And he had a chain he used to wear, and I used to always used to see him with his chain, and she had the chain on. And then she told me the story behind the chain as well. And so all my life I knew him to have this particular chain, and never knew that it was a whole romance connected to that chain that predated me. So it's just so many, I guess what you want to say, distractions. I don't even want to say trials and traumas, because trials and traumas, trials are trials, or traumas are traumas. The only difference between the two is the outcomes. But she really helped me navigate, because it was their relationship that helped me navigate my relationship. It was them not getting married when they supposed to. It helped me get married when I supposed to. She literally, and that story literally helped me connect and turn my girlfriend into a fiance and then a wife. So I think as a community, as a global community, those stories has a big impact. When they say history, I mean those stories. There's a lot of his,
Mhm.
and and a lot of stories that come from so many different his that have to contribute to the success of one person. And it was a lot of stories that contribute to my success, and preferably my story would contribute to the successes of millions, if not billions, of people, if as God will. But that's why I'm glad we're on this Fatherhood Think Tank, because we get to share particularly intimate moments that would look like or seem like made for TV moments. And the truth of the matter is, any one of our lives um, can easily be a made for TV moment if you get the opportunity to actually share it.
Light boy, listen, let me tell you something, man. I've been working on that. I've been dealing with that all day. This idea of people believing that their life can't be a TV show, can't be one of these TV made lifetime specials. They believe that, what's the likelihood that's going to happen to me? Why would that happen? And then you say, what are you doing to avoid that to happen? I don't know. It just ain't likely that it happened to me. And I'm saying, we live in a way different. Listen, you think of the number of people, number of people. Just think of the number of people that stuff has happened to that you don't know, because when we was around back in the day, it wasn't no social media, it wasn't no mass media telling us all the things that happened. Listen, could you imagine back when the Atlanta child murders was going on? We had social media. It
Right.
just, you start thinking about the kind of things that would happen and how they would be portrayed today, because we had some wild things go on back in the day before we had any mass media. And some of it wouldn't have probably happened because people would have been being informed. They would have been doing something different, and some things would have occurred faster and slower. And so you live in a day where people think, oh, these things can't happen because I know everything, because I'm getting a fast act of learning things quicker. When I think that that's not promise. We got the same kind of people, and they got the same new technology, so they can use the same technology to do what somebody else was doing back then. I went to go, and I suggest to you guys, man. Last night I went to go see One Spoon of Chocolate. It's the RZA's movie coming out of Quentin Tino's movie studio, but it's the RZA's movie, man. And it was at some point I had to almost get out and walk out for a minute, man. So that's how deep. And I think when I really think about our conversation tonight, because the conversation tonight is beard long also, was part of that in the conversation of within the last 48 hours, the number of father men that I just known that either almost fell down bad or passed away. You had a father who just, and we were still taken back on this, is that he was just happy in his marriage, just got married not too long ago, living the life, and fell down and bumped his head.
Oh, yeah, that's unfortunate.
This is one of the things we start thinking how precious life is. I don't know. We might think of that because of our own mortality, because we're in the age of mortality being important, and we're thinking about it. And I just think, like, how do young people don't think about it? Our people can, and in them, and I'm saying that because in the movie, some of the decisions that the young people made is they wasn't thinking about their mortality. They was thinking about, I can do whatever I want forever, and nothing will happen to me. So if you give, again, I always like to give a nice shout out to good movies that I see that might be useful for us just to and so that's One Spoon of Chocolate. You don't know how long it's gonna be out because it's rough. It's a rough one. So I don't know how long they're gonna have it out. You got to go to the special theaters probably to see it, special cultural theaters. You know,
Okay.
here in Philly, we got these cultural theaters that they show the independent films and stuff like that. So if you're down in South Florida,
Wow.
I forgot where you can go see those movies. They got some places down there you can see.
That's okay.
So, but that to me that's a big part of the focus, man, and being able to focus and seeing things like and being able to see things differently. Because that me watching that and watching these young people that got passed away in that movie and thinking about many of them did things that was like I would never do. Not the day you say, hey, here come a car full of ladies, and you walking down the street and they say, come get in the car.
Mm.
I'm not getting in no car with no car full of ladies. I'm not doing that. They ride having a good time, and I'm walking down the street trying to get a ride, and they pull over and pick me up. Well, yeah, I'm not doing it.
No, but I mean, being young, I understand the excitement of being young.
Right.
And so, and I often say this because I usually hear people play one against the other, particularly when it comes to being young. And we play young people against each other all the time. And so we'll play the intelligent guy against the interesting guy, right? And not understanding they can learn from each other, because I'm like, listen, being intelligent is no substitute for being interesting. And so when it comes to that, I said the first thing people know, your introduction is how interesting you are, not how intelligent you are. And so it's very rare that you get to see intelligence play out, or people even be attracted to intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we showing up like that do sound good. Oh, I want an intelligent man. I say in the minute the guy or whoever the approach is intelligent, then you see him as being corny. So I think a lot of time being interesting is for the short term, and being intelligent is for the long term. We just have to know how to pivot that and not play children or the next generation against each other because of it or with it. And so pivoting is going to be very pivotal. Pivoting is going to be very pivotal when it comes to the process of living. And that's something that haven't really been transferable as far as when it comes from generation to generation. I think it haven't become an intelligence. It's become more of an instinct because we fail to be as interesting teaching it as we was living it. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
People, you see the excitement when we talk about living it, but we don't transfer that same excitement when it comes to teaching it. And so you see people who grew up with each other, and the excitement is just at a high level. And when you hear them talk about it, you can almost see the movie of their life when they're literally sharing those experiences and those memories organically. You can almost see the movie. But when it comes to transferring it to share with your children and the next generation, and we kind of fall short because the passion, or maybe just the want to even share it, or the want to make them understand it, is not there. And so I think that's where a lot of emotional debt, psychological debt, and in some cases intellectual debt happens between fathers and their children. I think I'm experiencing it right now as we speak. Me and my children are not on the best terms, and I think that because their mortality lacks maturity, they don't see value where I am, the way I value where they are. You understand? So, but I'm a very, and they see it as being narcissistic, and I've seen that that stereotype being placed on guys because we're being very necessary. And so I see people starting to stereotype being necessary as being narcissistic. And I'm like, no, I am not gonna. Some things are non-negotiable for me, and
Mhm.
so I am not gonna trade um, being necessary because you want to stereotype me as being narcissistic. You understand? Because at the end of the day, the only person that give a damn about your life is me and the other one that had you. You understand?
Mhm.
And that's why I have to be necessary. I can't lose you to a lose any of my children, and I got 7 of them, to a unnecessary niceness. So that's why I chose to be necessary over being nice. I said, I mean, I see my wife; she's nice all the time. And I told her don't change it because that's why I married her. You know, the Bible called wives a helpmate or a help meet, and she helped me meet. You understand?
Mhm.
The balance that I need to really be the parent I needs to be, or I can be to my children, to our children. But at the same time, I have to be necessary. You understand? And I don't want to say, yeah, I could say it. I got to be necessary to transfer a level of um, responsibility and discipline to them that they may be getting ready to negotiate at being somebody's recreational experiment or something like that. And that's what back to your point when you probably, I didn't see the movie, but when you're talking about the mortality rates, then yes, I mean, I'm like, listen, I got to give you a necessary experience so you don't end up being somebody in that unnecessary experiment. Because at the end of the day, if somebody ruined your life, or you just join in and make a decision that ruins your life, then those consequences are not going to just be lived by you. Those consequences are going to be lived by everybody who loved you, because
Mhm.
Mhm.
they ones will have to go and visit you with the length of time that you're going to get. They the ones who's going to have to either nurse you back to health because you made an unhealthy decision in any way, shape, or form. And unfortunately, they're the ones who may have to bury you. And so I'm seeing, and especially in this particular season, I'm seeing some great parents bury some good children. And I'm not talking one person. I'm talking. I saw some. I mean, I'm seeing. I'm getting ready to go to a wake this weekend. But I'm
Mhm.
seeing in the last year, I'm not even talking about years, I'm talking about the last 365 days. I've
Mhm.
seen some great parents with an S. And I'm talking about almost starting to be too many to count because it's really traumatizing to me. Great parents bury some good children.
Mhm.
And that's the thing for me that has me in a, I think a certain part has me traumatized, but in a certain part has me in this like a triage right now, where I'm processing my emotions, my feelings, and how I am going to distribute those emotions and feelings when I need to distribute those emotions and feelings at a particular time. So that's where I'm at with it. I wish I can tell you. I mean, again, I think every parent out there that put forth their best, Aaron is a great parent when it came to loving their children. Unfortunately, you there's a process of getting our kids from good to great, and that's where a lot of these issues arrive.
Well, you know,
Almost. Yeah.
like one. You're saying something, man. That
Mhm.
but first, let me recognize. We got a couple messages I want to come follow,
Mhm.
but say we got brother. This is Barbator. He says one of the paradox of life is we can only choose one direction in life. Then you end up wondering what life would be, what would
Right.
be life if you chose another direction. All right, listen, I tell you right now, when I even think about my own personal journey of fatherhood, if I would have been different about situations in the past and would have been very adamant about maybe not so much things being um, somebody's solo choice. That I would have advocated more is a double choice. I mean, I made my point, but maybe I didn't make it, and I always wonder exactly what Brother Tar said, brother is saying, is what would have happened? What could have happened? Where would I be? How would I be? Would I have a grown kid now? You know, they already be grown. Already, 3 generations. Grown children, what have you. So that's something to think about. And also, we got my Puerto Rican brother. Thank you, brother. Yes, thank you for watching. The panel definitely appreciate it. Hey, man, we want to get you on here and share some of your, just listen, hit on it. And I know you got some knowledge in there. So definitely thanks for watching us. And thank you for the shout out on the show. My good brother, my Puerto Rican brother. I actually need to catch up with you to talk to you about the passing of somebody. But we definitely will get back to that. But now the kind of address what Lightborn was pointing at, this whole getting everything in order, how we getting things in order. At some point, I spend a lot of time focusing on fathers, focusing on our fathers, like fathers and grandfathers, because I do most of my work is, I work in a strong sense of strength-based, transgenerational. I don't focus on outside, I focus on inside the family. Many of the things that we do are family oriented, based on, even if we did have an experience, if my grandfather was a man who was a man of the women and had multiple women, even if I wasn't experienced around him, somehow that not the actual maybe being a man of the woman, but whatever makes him that man or woman could transgenerationally come to be inside of me. And based on, what my exposure is, and saying, oh, I got this uncle, I got this aunt, I got, okay, they got their mom and this mom, could begin to normalize for me, right? Normalize the idea that if it's already that action is inside me, but then I now have the environmental exposure to seeing that, to say, oh, I'm going to do that. And sometimes it's not always we're going to do something because we see it. Sometimes we say, I'm not going to do that. Because we do, as I think as brother said, is a paradox, but we have a choice. We have a strong choice. And sometimes in our stage, in the next generation, have a lot more choices than our forefathers had. Sometimes they had choices, but their choices wasn't. I remember one time my uncle telling me, and he passed away, and he was, sometimes he was like a father to me. Because he was fun. At some point funner than my dad was. Because my dad was my dad, but my uncle was like fun guy. But one time, before he passed away, we had some serious conversation about a child that may have been his. And well, that was his or not. And I thought so much at the time, I was like, yo, why don't you go and why don't you try to make some kind of whatever? And it was a point that he didn't know how or what to do or how to do it, right? And the reason why I said, how did this happen? And he told me the story that he was concerned. He went to the hospital when the child was born, and the brothers called him in the stairway and told him if he came back around, they was gonna kill him.
Wow.
And Listen, I don't know if that's true or not. I can't say if it was, but I do know that that kind of stuff was true. I know that in the time of where we lived in the city, and depending on what city, because that's not the first time I ever heard something like that. I heard that again in another time. I'm not gonna say what it was, but the dad told the dude, "If you come back around my daughter, I'm gonna kill you." Now you, hey, this is the daughter's, this your grandchild's father. You tell him, hey, come back around, man. And some people be like, hey, yo, I don't want no trouble. I ain't really want this situation anyway. And now you kind of put it in this, and then some people push another way. So it's, it just depends on the family structures and how things work out. So it's easy today to say things without knowing how things was in the past. You know, and I don't. And again, I can't say if these things were true or not. It just deals with people's narratives about what happened with them in their fatherhood and being a father and what could have, how other fathers or other members of their family told them that they wasn't gonna be no father to their child. So the wild one, but it is what it is.
Oh boy. With children, being a father, as generations change, we talk about nurture, the child being in your presence to teach your child. Many times our children are being taught by other people. They're being taught by the environment. And fathers, in my opinion, most times is best in the home where we can actually share some thoughts and plant some roots in that child. And then again, children, we were children too. And sometimes we see the light when we're 20. Sometimes we see the light when we're 40. So, we look back and say, Dad was right. He told me this 20 years ago. No, he's gone. I can't tell him he's right because at that time I wasn't in that place. So, sometimes we have to use some empathy and some patience. Sometimes they're just not there yet. And we just have to be there in the corner, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
whenever they fall. Because sometimes they're going to fall. And sometimes they fall more than once. But as we always say, getting back up is the key, right? We fall, but getting back up is where you start over, brush off, and hopefully do better.
I was thinking about something, Ron, and I think our parents often said this because when you're talking about, when you're speaking about the topic of um, when daddy died, or just the death of a parent in general. I was thinking about something that our parents, because they love us so much, and I guess I couldn't really get this until I became a parent to really tap the epitome of the empathy they were trying to confer when I was young. And your parents say something to this magnitude here. Um, you're gonna either miss me when I'm gone or something to that. And I thought most of the time they were trying to put us on a guilt trip of sorts. And I never knew until I became a parent they was trying to
Mhm.
inspire gratefulness. So what I thought was guilt then is grateful became gratefulness now, and later on. And so here I am now, not saying because I think it's what would be one of the greatest regrets for me is um, any of my parents ever having to think that there would be that how would you call it? I would be better off that I would get or have a better appreciation for them dead than alive. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And so I think to put your parent in that kind of mindset, like you're gonna miss me when I'm gone, that's when advocacy, or better yet, when it comes to our advocacy, we need to start learning how to arm ourselves with apologies. Because an apology is a very essential ingredient for advocacy. And I think it works both ways, not just from child to parent, but from parent to child. And so when my mom died, we was able, which is two totally different dynamics. Because when my dad died, he was in the middle of, I was just inspired by the renewed romance that he was in the middle of. And he had so much living to do and had so much living to look forward to when he died. That's the lesson I got from him. The lesson I got from my mom when she died was um, we got to get closure. But we got because I got to ask her everything I need to ask her. I got to ask her, was I a good, was I a good child and stuff like that. And coincidentally, my mom was less affectionate to me than my dad. My dad would tell me everything that he had to tell me, how he felt about me and different things. My mom, she wouldn't, but she would brag to everybody else about me. Now, what does that say? Because she knew her son so well that she was always proud of me, but never told me she was proud of me. I always heard it from secondhand, things like that. And then I actually have a recording, a video where they did a tribute to her. I'm talking about a national tribute throughout the Bahamas to her, because she was entertained over there, very extremely popular. But again, I didn't know that side of her life. I only knew her as my mom. And so she was an it girl. You heard me? She was the it girl. and it's very weird for a son because I didn't, you never see your mom as the it girl, but she was the it girl for her time. And she never fell short of telling everybody how proud she was of her son, but never rarely told her son that. And the only time she actually told me was prior to her death when I had to ask her. And when I asked her, it was a very basic, I'm proud of you. And that was it. She didn't get into no type of details, no affection, none of that. Movie, that movie stuff you be trying to expect, because we let the movies just shape our whole mentality. So I was looking for the movie version answer, and that's not what I got. And I didn't get the movie version until after she passed away. Once I heard the recording when they actually did an interview with her prior to. Matter of fact, they did the interview with her because they was celebrating all the older entertainers. They were bringing them back and let them know who was shaping the culture of entertainment over in the Bahamas at that particular time. And they brought her on, and they did an interview with her. And I was like, wow, she interviewed very well, very entertaining. Wow, I'm like, entertaining. And so, and the things she said about me, I had never heard before in my life until I listened to that interview. So the guy who did the interview, as a matter of fact, the interview was being done the same year I was getting married. She did it that summer, between that summer and August, and I got married in the fall. And so I didn't get to hear that interview until she passed away. And it was very, still needed right now. And I, always, and it's good to have. It's amazing. And I tell anybody, when it comes to whether it be the father or your mother, cherish those pictures. And it don't seem like much, but those pictures and them videos, they are, man, they're priceless. Priceless memorabilia. Probably more priceless than finding a $1 billion piece of artwork, even greater than that, because you get to see stuff, spaces and times that you can always remember, but never relive. And so that's one of the things that I think when it comes to both ends, not just the death of my parents, but what type of life that I'm going to live when it comes to the memory of our children. So that's where I'm at with it.
Like when you bring it kind of like full circle. And I think that, we're talking exclusively about fathers, but I think that, they have these books, right? These AI books that you could get, and you should interview your parents, and then they'll make a book about your parents. And I think that we don't really cherish. A lot of people don't have those type of relationships. You said it very clearly. You didn't find out any of this stuff after your mom, was already gone. And so any questions or real things that you would want to investigate, it would almost be impossible because she was already gone, And if that doesn't mean something to you, I say that for people right now, as you're listening, this should be the point. If you haven't had that kind of communication, because there is something they're going to say to you in that conversation or in that interview or in that whatever, that's going to hit you, that's going to propel you to the next level that you really need to be. And I just believe that because so many things that really happen go unnoticed unless they negative. We know all the bad stuff. We know all the horrible. We don't know. We didn't know that she was. Here's the problem. We didn't know that mother was the valedictorian class, but we knew she got pregnant in college. I mean, in high school. You know, you don't because those negative things always overshadow. My dad had a Purple Heart and saved people in the military. No, he was an alcoholic. He was smoking crack. That's and when you have these things, your sensibility and understanding, oh, he saved lives. He had a Purple Heart. How was he able to manage today? I'm talking about the way we operate today. Everybody we culturally understand that there's a cause and effect, and people are not they're not robots. They're human beings, and we understand trauma. We understand how PTSD and how trauma could change people's life and what it could make them do. Even if we see it in lawsuits. The lady was burned by some hot coffee, and she needed millions of dollars to get over the burn of the hot coffee that she wanted to drink through the drive-through window. Many people was maimed back in the day. They was maimed and just had to keep on living. There was no trauma for that. No, and so just being able to look at some of that today for our parents and saying, like, where do I look for the positives? Where do I look for the exceptions in my father, despite all the negatives that are there? Is there something worthy for me to look into? Is there something worthy for me to recognize and identify? Because everything that hasn't been has been told to me, right? Someone has mentioned or made, all the. And again, if you don't have the story from them themselves, right? Because a lot of times they will not try to. Many people are not defense attorneys, okay? So most people, average people would just say, I ain't gonna say nothing. You either believe me or you don't believe me. And I'm not trying to defend myself because I know the truth, right? And sometimes that leaves them in an awkward position because, you know the truth, but people want to hear the truth. They want to hear you at some point be able to say, look, this is what happened, this is how it happened, and I take accountability for what happened, how it happened. But nothing I can do about it now. I can maybe try to work towards the future with you and what we could do different, but what happened. You can't go back and change some of the things that happened. If I was wise as I was today, I probably wouldn't do the same things I did then. But that's why now we need to come together, because I'm not the same person who made those mistakes. And guess what? My child, you have the tendency to make those same mistakes I made if you don't talk and involve yourself with me to recognize your vulnerabilities to what made me vulnerable to make those same mistakes. But that's a hard sell to sell, especially the young people. I mean, sometimes very hard to sell them that you already know. I already know. And sometimes they say, you think you know everything. And I don't know everything. I just know I know me. And if you anything like me, you vulnerable to the things that I wish I could have changed. I could have made different. You're vulnerable to them because you got my genes. You got my mindset. You got my movement. And again, it goes into this idea. Well, you made mistakes. What can you tell me? And I think that's an arrogant way for people to be, because the mistake maker knows, and you can learn from their mistake instead of making the same mistake also. But again, I'm starting to get into some
Go on.
food for thought. But I definitely want to keep that in a safe place. One of the really safe places that we have here.
You mentioned the word mistake, and I say this a lot to many fathers and people I speak to. Some things in life happen for a reason, and we're here for a reason, all of us, including the audience. I talk about a guy who he was rushing to catch a plane to fly, and when he got to the airport, they told him the door is locked, and he can't go on board, join the plane, or go on the plane, so to speak. So he gets angry, he quarrels and fumes. And a few minutes later, the plane crashed. Everyone on the plane died. So sometimes I believe we would like things to go our way, but things happen for a reason. It wasn't your time yet. Things happen. Sometimes things happen. We want it to happen. We push it. We said we want this to happen, but in reality, it wasn't your time yet. Something else turned you into a different direction. You're like, wow, what happened if you had gone on that plane? So we got to look at life in a way that some things are just what it is. I will just make the best of the situation, and we learn from it, as they say, Ron, and we do better in the future.
And I think that's what we, this is the whole point of why we even have this. I mean, we sit here today and around the think tank, and it wasn't a whole bunch, idea of, somebody could see the title of the show and say, oh, these guys are in here talking about, the death of their fathers and how it changed. It's not so much about us. It's about, a general assistance for the world to learn from what we experienced, as well as looking at our experiences, how it relates to yours, and for you to start thinking about it. I continue to say this over and over again about thinking and thinking and thinking. My good friend Frenchie Davis, I'm normally on her radio show WBIA in New York, and she has the same kind of program, literacy about literacy, and that's about thinking. It's about thinking about what we're doing, how we're doing something, and how it operates. Because when we stop thinking and just start acting, we are kind of controlled by our emotions. Like, our emotions tell us to do this, and not do we think, hey, is this a good idea? Many men are fathers because of their emotions, not because of thinking. They didn't think, think about it. They reacted on it, and they thought they was moving in another way. And it just brought me back to this point. Get out of thinking too much, right? And what I mean by that is, as a clinician, and I like Bourne understand this as well, being a clinician himself. Get out of these buzzwords. These buzzwords, these diagnosis terms, is killing us. It's causing people to use those as like bullets. I'm telling, it's like Boy have his opinion, say the things, like Boy narcissistic. He's narcissistic. How? Listen, if you were narcissistic, let me explain to you how people have begun to use these. And again, and I'm saying this because when people begin to go deal with their fathers, or listen to stories about their father, these kind of terms begin to come in play, right? How could you be narcissistic and come onto a show and listen to other people's comments, listen to other people's points of view, give feedback and comment back. Also to recognize that, hey man, you right about that. I didn't think about that. That doesn't work. Narcissism doesn't work in that capacity.
But that's
You have to
Ron. You know
really
why?
read.
But Ron, this is why that
Huh?
I'm gonna tell you why that. I'm gonna tell you why that is. And of course, I saw the movement coming a long time ago. I mean, you know, when we do what we're doing, and particularly when we do it on this show, but you have to be aware at all times, right? And so, being a social worker, I get to see social changes. I've been a social worker for 30 years, so I get to see the changes. I get to forecast them now. See, maybe within a 10, 20-year period, I couldn't forecast them. I might can predict them, but I can't forecast them. Now I can forecast them better because I'm wiser to do so. And so when I saw this mental health, the mental health movement coming, then you start to see people manipulate it, right? And start to use it with malice. And most of the time, the people that's using it are patients themselves. They're not practitioners, they're patients. And so
Right.
when they're misusing stuff, misdiagnosing society for their own personal gain, and they're misdiagnosing society out of immaturity. And so when you see people using the narcissism, or particularly trying to, because usually the time when you hear people say narcissism, they're referring mostly, I'm talking about like 90% of the time they're referring to men. And particularly they're referring to affirmed men, or what I like to call necessary men. So now they take being necessary and try to turn it into narcissism as a ploy to try to control or override your narrative. And so it stops you or distract you from living in your now, in the fullness of your now. And the only way I can prevent you or distract you from living in the fullness of your now, or dealing with the fullness of your now, is to try to conquer your narrative with terms like being narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
And you know me, I own my narrative at all times. So I'm like, oh, don't confuse being necessary with being narcissistic. Because you guess what? You're the recipient of it right now. You understand? And if you're not you're not reciprocal of something, because if you're still a recipient, which means you're benefiting from who I am, you understand? You don't get we're not even on the same wavelength right now, because you're more at a deficit than I am. But you still don't have nothing to negotiate with, and that's where the narcissism comes in, when the negotiation happens, and you understand you're not bringing anything to the negotiating table to really negotiate with, even though what we're trying to do in this whole negotiation is save your life, not mine. The whole purpose of this negotiation is to save your life, make your life better. You understand? And because you didn't have anything to negotiate with, then this is where the insult of being a narcissist come in, because they want to control that narrative and distract you from being very necessary. But I'll tell anybody, and particularly men, listen, stick to being necessary. I don't care how many narcissists they want to call you, stick to being necessary, because it's going to be very pivotal and very critical towards your now.
And again, like, well, I don't disagree that there are people out there who are narcissistic, historic, antisocial, bipolar, conduct. So listen, there are people out there, but everyday people that you come in contact that you disagree with how they operated in a relationship or something with you doesn't make them bad, right? And I'm saying that because but I notice that people will take very diagnosis that will be safe, right? Because there's a safe diagnosis to say the person narcissistic, because the person can hide that they was narcissistic or what have you. And I don't think that it operates like that. I think that people think it operates like that. A narcissistic person is narcissistic when you meet them. Then they don't become narcissistic over a time period of frame. That might be a manipulating type of person, and then that person might be a psychopath, or they could be antisocial. They could have multiple personalities. They can have With the guy right now, killing the little girl, having IDD, identity disorder. That thing that they won't adopt, they won't say that, because then that question that goes back to like the question you said earlier: what do I look like getting with somebody who like that? Right? I can tell this person has something wrong with them, but what was my thought pattern of getting with them in that capacity? And so I challenge people. Look for other terms to use, especially when it comes to looking at fathers and looking at the fathers, because we know that. And I'm not going to say that they're not men who are diagnosed with disorders, who practice them, and who are affected by them. But also, there's a point of this is if a person is affected by something, they are in treatment. That's why they go to treatment, and they end up in treatment and hopefully getting better. Just like if they had cancer, lupus, MS, all these other illnesses that somebody could be diagnosed with. So, sometimes I think these are the things. And I'm only bringing that up because I think about how people begin to sometimes stereotype fathers, or stereotype a father, or stereotype their father, or saying that they're this, they're that, these things, and then you're looking for something to validate your argument with them, right? Because if you say somebody narcissistic, I know back in the day it used to be they was bipolar. Somebody was bipolar, and then you could say that's why they acting funny, and one day they mood change. But bipolar got nothing to do with that. Just so you know, if you're with a bipolar person, trust me, bro, you're not. You listen. You about to get on a roller coaster, because when they become manic, they're about to take you for a ride that you never took before in your life. And then after that ride, then they'll be depressed. And depression show up different for men and women, and so all these kind of things you just got to look at. So I just throw that in there, just so when we're thinking about how we approach and look at these situations and begin to evaluate, like my dad, and what was he like, or how do I approach the idea about him, or how do I even go and find my dead alive dad? How am I going to approach him? My dead alive dad. How do I go to approach him? How and do I let go of I want him to approach me? And I think that's a big part, because do you want it? Because there's one thing for again, it's one thing for him to approach you, but it's another thing for you to approach him. And I know I've heard people say they don't want to be let down. They don't want these things. But sometimes what we bring to the table is what we end up getting to eat with. So I just like to say that. People like to say, this gonna happen. But what you walk to the table with is usually what you're about to eat with. So, if you bring hope and expectancy to the table, 9 times out of 10, hope and expectancy. And I've been on a project. I've been doing a project for the last couple of days, and we're going to get up out of here. For the last couple of months, I've been going places, and I've seen people not looking happy. First thing I do is make a smile and say, hey, what's up, man? Hey, what's up? What's up? To see, and guess what happens? Their emotion, their affect, everything changes to what I presented to them.
I believe that.
Hey, what's up, man? Just like, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? And the man he was looking like, and he was like, hey, what's up? Like we was going to have a full conversation, like we were about to old buddies. And he didn't know me from Adam Scott, but my affect and how I presented to him changed how he presented to me, and probably when he went into the rest of the store, how he continued to be. Because I'm seeing it the opposite way. So I challenge people. They had a LES challenge and all these other kind of challenges. I challenge people to greet people with happiness. Greet them with hope and expectancy and happiness. Hey, what's up? Hey, how you doing today? You good, brother? That's good. Hey, sister, how you doing? Well, be careful on how much you say to sister. They don't want you to think you're trying to catcall them. But meeting somebody with that smile and that grin can definitely change the day. Um, any final word for you guys before we show these advertisers and get up out of here for the night?
Yeah, Ron. After we finish this slide, can we have a quick chat? Just three of us. Yeah, if you got a minute. After we,
Oh, after go off?
after we wrap up, yeah. Let's just
Okay, I'll take care of that and we'll cut off and we can get that. All right. Good deal. Well, with that being said, let me go ahead and put us on what we need. Our let you know who our sponsors. We got JAG, attorney at law, Miami-Dade, Broward, West Palm Beach. If you was looking to see what JAG looked like and how he was on here last week. But if you want to go and check him out, JAG Law, attorney at law, Johnny A. Gaspar, Esquire. You can hit him in the email at j.gaspar.jag1law.com. Hit his phone number 305-827-8087 and website www.jag1law.com. That's one of our keynote sponsors, sponsors of the Fatherhood Think Tank. We also have the Zeta Chi chapter of Omega Psi Phi, the Fort Lauderdale Qs, longtime sponsors of the Fatherhood Think Tank. We also have our international sponsors, Zeta Xi Nu chapter of Omega Psi Phi in Lagos, Nigeria. International sponsors of the Fatherhood Think Tank, and in cooperation with their Fatherhood Mentor Program platform. And then right here in this beautiful 250 city of Philadelphia, 250 years, we have the Philly Qs, Omega Lambda chapter of Omega Psi Phi right here in the great first capital, birthplace of America, Philadelphia, sponsored through their Fatherhood Initiative program. If fathers are looking for, and you're looking for a place and you can't get in touch with me, and can't get on one of the pages and leave a message and try, you can hit the Fatherhood Call Center hotline for dads, 1-877-4-411. It's offered by the National Responsible Fatherhood Clearinghouse and Fathers Incorporated. And if you're not doing anything, we had some technical difficulties last week. I don't know. Think somebody might be shadow banning me or whatever. They want me to get this information out about the miseducation of Black women dating. But Healthy Black Marriage and Family Podcast, I call it Black. It's back 7:00 Thursday night on the Mentor Educator Therapist YouTube page and Facebook of Ron Christopher Osborne Williams. So you want to catch that and the beautiful ladies who share that platform with me, it definitely is in a place. So I definitely want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I mean, again, guys, I think we've had another wonderful show. I hope people were able to get something. Let's like, share, subscribe, join the platforms. Try to get. Listen, we don't come here and ask for donations. We don't say buy merch. Maybe we should get some merch. I know people might like it. That's something for the future. But I really, really want people to be able to watch and kind of get into and listen to this as they might be riding home or driving home. Or listen to the conversation and get involved. It's a staple for me to, as a part of my maintaining my sanity as not just a man but also as a father, and just it helps me reconnect with some men and some fathers that's not connected in the circle that I gotta be in my work circle or otherwise. So we're here and we want to thank you. With that being said, Guys, we know how to do it. Repeat after me. I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of honor.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of courage.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of respect.
I am.
I am a man of respect.
Fathers, I say that I am.
I am.
Fathers, I say that we are.
We are.
Fathers, I say that you are.
You are.
Championship
Father.
No change, right? We're gonna do that no matter what.
And again, folks, thank you for joining us. Please come back next week. Join us. We'll have another 90 minutes of fatherhood talk, fatherhood think tank, fathers talking about fathers, for fathers, by fathers. And that's a powerful place to be. No people here just talking to talk. Some experts saying they psychologists or specialists or anything like that. Just fathers talking about what they know about fatherhood, and listening and sharing for other fathers. Join us here again next Tuesday, 7:00, between 7:30. You know, it takes me a little time because I have clients sometimes getting off late, but we'll be here. We're always gonna be here and try to keep it going. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you here next week at the Fatherhood Think Tank.